any other big company or a competitor of ours and get a very, very similar service. But because we are so driven to make the UK and Europe a success, we will be an incredible partner for you. And that's now leading to lots of other work. That process we've replicated 4 times so far in the last 7 months to come to success, all through trusted engagements, because that's what's going to get you in the door.
My name's Mike Lander, and you're listening to Higgle, the B2B Sales Club podcast, where we bring you actionable insights about sales RFPs, negotiations, and difficult procurement discussions from sales leaders, brand leaders, and procurement leaders. Please subscribe to get updates when new episodes are released. John, thanks ever so much for joining me on Higgle, the B2B Sales Club podcast. It's great to have you.
My pleasure. Nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
You had a very interesting trip recently over to South America, haven't you?
Yeah, I have indeed. I went to Sao Paulo my second time there. Brazil's an incredible country, and it's nice to go and see the offices out there. I got to visit a bit more of Sao Paulo. I think there's about 35 million people living in Sao Paulo, which is almost half the population of the UK or somewhere close to that.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. It's
huge.
Yeah. And I think something they're most well known for within Sao Paulo, but not worldwide, is the amount of traffic. It takes absolutely ages to go anywhere. It's bad. If you want to go to the airport, you need to give yourself a good 2.5-3 hours to get there. It's
oh my goodness,
especially when it rains, because they've not got great way of drainage systems. Certainly,
that's a good tourist trip for anyone that's going to South America. So, at that point, could you just explain to the audience who are you, what do you do, and then something unusual about yourself?
Yeah, no worries. So I'm John Birtwhistle. I'm the UK COO for a business called FCamara, who are a Latin American technology and innovation digital consultancy. We help companies find business value from their digital journey, essentially. And they've been around for 17 years, predominantly out of Latin America. In the last 2 or 3 years have ventured out into the wider world. Something a bit unusual about me, when I was 18, it's quite a long time ago now, 20 odd years ago, I went to go traveling around Greece and ended up in my first destination and didn't get any further than that because I became a Club 1830 holiday rep.
Oh, my word. Wow.
Which, yeah, it's got both positive and negative connotations, depending on how old you are and what you know about being an 1830s rep. But it was an incredible experience, my first foray into kind of sales, I guess, and being kind of frontline sales in that aspect. The first plane journey that landed from the UK was from Scotland. And I remember they had to be diverted via Schiphol Airport in Amsterdam because the plane had caught fire inside because the days you could bring on lighters, obviously, many years ago, and that exploded apparently. So by the time they got here, I was handing out vouchers for food, and it was like 3 o'clock in the morning, and that was my first introduction to repping. So
wow, yeah. Excellent, and you've never looked back. Yes,
never looked back. Never looked back.
So let's kick off. So what do you see? Also, rather, why do you see the UK and Europe as attractive markets, growth markets for agencies?
Yeah. It's a good question. I guess where I'd first start is the level of maturity that you have. It's certainly in the UK. I can only talk from kind of UK technology consultancy perspective, but it's incredibly saturated. Let's be honest. There are lots and lots of huge organizations, brands that people are very well known of, but there are lots of smaller 4, 6, 10, 15 type businesses, very, very niche, very, very technical, that have almost been spawned out of what happened 10, 15 years ago when the government kind of changed into GDS, and it spawned a lot of cool companies. But for other businesses coming to the UK and Europe, there's this kind of almost appetite that this is the place to be. This is where all the amazing stuff happens. And certainly, if I can speak from FCamara and Latin America's perspective, is that they've done incredible things in Latin America. It's almost like the UK and Europe is where it's at. If we can do it there, then we're doing something right. We've spoken a lot about what makes us different, and the reality of the situation is we are a business, or we're a one-stop shop. But it's almost like, how can you position ourselves in terms of our culture, the types of people that the Latin American people bring, their ability to speak the English language, or obviously Portugal near shore there. They speak Portuguese. So that foray into Europe is relatively straightforward. But they've got a great grasp of the English language. They've got fantastic universities. They've also got a real enterprise environment. They're bigger than Europe, certainly in terms of Brazil, which most people don't appreciate. A lot of it is covered by Amazon, which you have to take into account, but the scale is there. And Europe and the UK are just lots of things happening. You got in Germany, there's lots of payments. We specialize in financial services and fintech, and certainly out of Germany, you've got lots of payment companies which have been spawned out of that area. In Portugal, you've got some really huge e-commerce businesses. And it seems like in order for us to be on the kind of tier one status, that we need to have presence in those regions.
I mean, the good thing is that people still see the UK and Europe as attractive regions to enter. Because obviously you could take a negative view and say, well, we've had Brexit and we've got inflation and interest rates are through the roof compared to where they were 5-10 years ago. So lots of uncertainty.
Absolutely. The taxes on businesses here are not that attractive compared to other regions. You've only got to look at some of the big tech companies that are putting their head offices out in Ireland and the like. But we did some research, and we looked at some stuff that Gartner produced, and I think after the US, the UK still got the biggest in terms of consulting spend. I think it's about £103 billion or something.
Right.
And it's far outweighs other regions of the world. You then got the Netherlands and kind of Benelux regions. And certainly Portugal, where we went into first, was I think about 3 to 5 billion. So I think these are growing as well. And within financial services, where we're kind of focusing our efforts, that's growing about 8-9% year on year, even still, despite everything that's going on.
And that's across Europe.
Yeah, across Europe. Yeah, so it's a huge growth, but there's also a growth market within sustainability. Not just kind of greenwashing, but actually how you as a business being. If your supply chain, if you're looking for ethical ways of doing things, whether that's the code that you're producing or the technology that you're choosing, or what are you doing as a business in order to try and do the right thing for the right reasons, not just because you feel that you have to. That's a huge area of growth. In retail and e-commerce is still growing. Certainly within centralized Europe, it's growing. I wouldn't say it's growing so much within the UK. Just from my experience of talking to friends in the industry, it's been a challenging market, but certainly within financial services and fintech, you've got lots of cool companies coming about trying to do cool. I spoke to a business yesterday, and they've developed this app to utilize the open banking framework that basically looks at your spending and then gives you a personalized view of how sustainable your spending been, depending on where you've bought your products. So yes, it's some quite cool, innovative technology out there, certainly.
There's a habit, certainly as Brits, to downplay the environment and what's going on, and that it's all a bit of a disaster at the moment, where actually, we're known as being innovators. We're known for having a highly creative talent base in the UK, and it's still a vibrant place, but it's not like it was 20, 30 years ago. So you've got to find your market now. It's much harder to find your opportunities.
Yes, I would agree. I think certainly from my experience, in the last 7 to 12 months, those kind of key relationships that you've got with people are really keen to help those that they trust.
Yes.
Whether it be for recommendations or to give them pointers. I used to have an old boss who was had incredible foresight when it came to this kind of thing. He was always happy to share information, always happy to give and give and give, because he knew at some point in life that would come back. And I really tried to take on that, and I didn't really quite understand it at the time, but over the recent past, certainly it's had a profound impact on us being able to establish FCamara in the UK, and how leveraging off those relationships can really get you introductions to places which you may not have got previously, just from a normal kind of sales approach.
I mean, I think, John, it's a critical topic. I was taught the trusted advisor model. I was taught that basically you give on the basis that people are trustworthy until they prove themselves not to be. And that stood me very well over many, many years. And I think increasingly now, given what's gone on with the internet over the last 20 years, 25 years, given what's now happened with AI, and obviously our concerns about trusted authority, trusted sources, buyers now, it's getting, we know that the buy market, the buy side, more stakeholders. So we know that definitely. Longer buying cycles, definitely. We know that often retainers are turning into projects. People are trying to manage their risk. And there's been some great work done by Matt Dixon and Ted McKenna, a book called Jolt. Back in the day, The Challenger Sale. So Matt Dixon and Brent Adamson wrote this great book called The Challenger Sale. And that was all about professional services challenging assumptions in the client's mind. And they wrote a book recently, Matt, and wrote a book called Jolt. And Jolt was all about basically uncertainty. And why do buyers now, why are they more concerned and why are they more reticent and what happens in that kind of buying cycle? And one of the things that they talk about is if a buyer's sat there and they've got the status quo, and we're all taught salespeople, well, the status quo is your enemy, you've got to defeat the status quo and then they'll buy. Well, it's more complex than that now, because one of the problems is it's not just the status quo, but it's if I do nothing and I live with the status quo and we don't get the outcome that we really want, I'll probably get in trouble, but I'm not going to get fired. If I hire someone to do something for me that's big and it goes wrong, I will get fired. So he's called it the fear of messing up, which is right. It's like basically, and you must see it in sales cycles, I see it, whereby it just all goes a bit quiet and people say, oh, I'm being ghosted. No, you're not being ghosted. Something's happened in their environment and stakeholders have gone, maybe now's not the right time.
Yeah, when people are keen, they'll come back and engage with you regularly at a decent cadence. You can feel it when people have gone quiet on you, and I think a lot of the time people are reticent or they're fearful of disappointing.
Yeah.
But it's ultimately it's almost that fear of the unknown. I would much rather hear from a customer and say, yeah, do you know what, we're not ready right now, or we've gone with another solution. I mean, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's no problem. I'll always be keen to hear how we could have done better or why they chose someone else. But even if things have quieted down for whatever reason, budgets have been changed or changing leadership or changing direction, that's fine. That's life. You get on with it and you move on.
But you also maintain the relationship.
Exactly.
Being this trusted advisor, to me means, well, you're always there. No matter what decision they make, you need to be on the end of the phone because one day something will come along that is more relevant.
Absolutely. I mean, I had an exact conversation yesterday we're changing our credit card provider. It's not quite the same, but we're changing our credit card provider as a business. And we're getting this new financial system set up internally. So it has to integrate with that to make it, a seamless process. We don't want to try and automate as much as possible. We want to create efficiencies internally just as much as we're talking to customers about doing it. And originally I was told, you need to go with this business type card. Okay, no problem. I went through the process. And I then heard the next day that no, it needed to be a corporate one as opposed to business. I rang them up and said, I need to cancel this. And immediately they changed in terms of being helpful, happy. Oh yeah, brilliant. And as soon as I said no, even though I was being honest and we're still going with you, but we need this product versus this product, because that person wasn't selling it anymore and obviously not getting the commission or whatever it was in the background. Immediately they changed. And I felt myself internalize change towards them and be like, hold on a minute.
Yeah.
You're the same business, you're the same company. I just need a different product. But because of the way that you have been reacted now,
exactly,
I'm never, ever going to engage with you as an individual ever again. Whereas if that person had been like, oh yeah, okay, I completely understand. Here's the person you need to speak to, then it would all been great.
Trust's a really funny thing. It takes a long time to build and it takes seconds to lose.
Absolutely. I think I can't remember what the actual stat was, but when you have a bad experience, you tell like 5 people.
Exactly.
When you have a good one, you might tell 1.
Yeah. And we rely on that. In services businesses, we rely on people who we never know it happens, but they say good things about us when we're not around. And the 11 touch points in terms of customer buying has never been more true.
Yeah, we spoke about that previously. I mean, that's something that we're obviously coming to a new market as a very well-established organization. And, we've been around, as I mentioned before, 17 years. We're up to close to $100 million revenue as an organization. We have got enterprise level customers in Latin America who are world renowned in international businesses. But ultimately here we are a complete unknown entity. We've got a couple of really incredible customers and we've recently just won a huge household name, which is fantastic. But ultimately we're an unknown. And, when we're looking at going through and kind of designing our complete global go-to-market marketing strategy. And the reason that is dealing off the basis, the stuff that worked before in Latin America is not necessarily transferable to different regions. How do people absorb content? Do they absorb it differently? How, in terms of how they want to hear things, where are they going for these kind of trusted relationships? And the reason I bring this up is that to talk about 11 touch points is that my kind of approach to marketing from that regard is it's very, very difficult to put a return on investment of one specific activity, because there might have been 10 others surrounding that, which have meant that this final one has meant that they want to engage, or do you know what, John? I heard from you talk on the B2B Sales Club,
Exactly.
or I saw you at a different event, and this is the 5th time I've come across you now. I'm actually open now to having that conversation. And we're bringing a different style. We're almost going to be quite disruptive in the UK for the UK market and the European market. Reason being is that we're able to offer really unique offerings at a price point which is incredibly attractive. You've had the advert. Ultimately, we're able to offer offshoring capabilities from a professional services perspective, and we are about 2/3 cheaper than what you get from an onshore model. And then they almost like this apathy. Well, if you're that cheap, can you be any good? And so so my kind of job in the team in the UK is about almost storytelling, saying that yes, it might be this price, but this price still dictates that you're going to get the same value. We're going to get to the outcome just as quickly as a tier 1 provider in the UK, but we're going to provide you with a service which is probably way above and beyond what you've got at a price point, which is incredible. You've had subcontinent outsourcing, which has had its positive and negative connotations depending on how it's managed and how that's worked with. You've gone to Eastern Europe, which has had huge levels of success, but with that success, those rates and prices are now coming up, and Latin America almost feels like the kind of next frontier for businesses seeking kind of innovation and growth. And it's our job to say that Brazil, Latin America, Mexico, Colombia. I think I've spoken to so many people, and I always ask them what they know about Brazil. And more often than not, it comes back up. Beach, the football team, Christ the Redeemer, and Havaiana flip-flops. They're not necessarily known for enterprise-scale technology solutions. But the reality is they are, in some aspects, way more advanced than they are here. I mean, certainly from, a financial services perspective, due to the economic environment in Brazil, certainly, they started from scratch. So they implemented open banking, I think, second behind the UK. And they have just absolutely taken that on board and have done some incredible pieces of work, which translate here. And when people see those case studies, they're like, oh, wow, that has real relevance. And you're able to do that and get the delivery at a price that is incredibly attractive.
But it's that combination, John, isn't it? I mean, having been a buyer, I've got some authority to say in B2B selling and buying, I can't think of a time when I only bought on price. If someone said, I'm just really cheap,
no, you're not
exactly. No. And I think your story here is very relevant, which is if it was just, well, we're the lowest cost producer, the quality is a bit average, then you're like, well, that's not going to work. But if you've got innovation and you're driving innovation in a region which is huge, complex, and has lots of big enterprises in it, and delivering really innovative, leading edge technical solutions to solve big business problems, and it comes at a price point which is a half or 2/3 of onshore, well, now there's a discussion.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's the conversations that we're having. And in terms of what the kind of our biggest challenge is building that level of credibility and building it quickly, which is why we're going through this global marketing strategy to say, okay, right, the people we want to be selling to, that will value the work that we've done. Where are these people hanging out? What mediums of press are they reading? What are they listening to? Where are they going to say, do you know what, this is I trust these people, even though I've never necessarily heard of them. Because we can back up what we're saying by the case studies that we've got. Our founder, Fabio, he's incredibly well regarded. He's like a rock star in Latin America in the sort of the tech world. He was the 3rd ever Microsoft Global MVP for Visual Studio. He's an incredibly gifted human being. And the work and his kind of philosophy and the work that we've done manifests itself and will stand up against anybody here. And we just happen to be very, very competitive. And as you mentioned something earlier on about the kind of procurement and buying cycle, the ability for managers or leaders to sign off budget has come down from where it was 5-10 years ago. And everyone's looking to try and get here at a cost which is better than they got the previous year, whilst getting the same value, getting it quickly, and et cetera, et cetera. It feels like all of these facets are coming together to a meeting at the same time. And we feel like we're in a very, very strong position to be able to offer this. And there's not that many other companies, certainly from technology consultancies, that have come from that part of the world, Latin America, and come to the UK. You've got some 2 major players who have done incredibly well. So it shows that it can work. And I know ultimately our goal is to be the number one within the next 3 to 5 years that everyone would think of our business when they're looking for this type of solution.
So if you look, John, at kind of business development, much broader than just your business, but if you looked at business development strategies and tactics that work when you're entering a new geographic territory, what have you learned? You'll be learning all the time because it'll evolve, but what have you kind of gone, tried that hasn't worked, tried this, that seems quite successful. What do you think are the big strands of how you develop new business when you're entering a new market?
I'll try and start on the most successful ones because they're the ones that are the nice ones.
Exactly. That'd be good.
The reality is the most successful conversations that we've had come to actual fruition through trusted relationships and partnerships. So to give a real life example, there is one particular business, they turn over 60 odd billion pounds. So dollars, sorry. So they're not a small company. We've got a trusted working relationship with them in Latin America. And a Sunday night, our founder was talking to their CEO in Latin America and said, we're setting up in the UK. I don't know if there's anything going on. Maybe have a chat. Anyhow, Sunday night, I get a message, very late Sunday, CCing in the CEO of Europe, of this business, who messaged me on a Sunday and was like, be great to meet. And I was like, blimey neck. I mean, if I reached out to this gentleman or this person, as me from FCamara UK, he'd be like, who the heck are you? Like,
you wouldn't even get past.
Wouldn't even entertain it.
The 1 second rule of delete would have happened.
Yeah, exactly. But because it came from someone that he trusted, he felt that he didn't need to message me. And then we went back and forward, and it just so happened that he lived and worked very, very close to me. And we actually met face to face. These meetings do happen still face to face. And it was quite a novel experience, to be perfectly honest. And he said, what makes you different? And I said, I'll be honest with you. We are like many other businesses, but what I can tell you is the people that you're going to be engaging with want to make a difference. And that's how we are going to position ourselves for you. Because you could go to any other big company or a competitor of ours and get a very, very similar service. But because we are so driven to make the UK and Europe a success, we will be an incredible partner for you. And that's now leading to lots of other work. That process we've replicated 4 times so far in the last 7 months to come to success, all through trusted engagements, because that's what's going to get you in the door. Where I've also seen some good engagement is through having a clear message and a clear purpose in terms of what your go-to-market is. What are you talking about constantly? What are you going to be a subject matter expert in? What do you know or knowledge around a particular subject? How is that going to have an impact or benefit or a problem that you know that the customers you're talking to are going through based on the other customers that you've been engaging with? That's had some real impact in terms of conversations.
And then having a point of view.
Storytelling.
You need a point of view.
Yeah, you do need a point of view, certainly. Where I've seen not work, and which I haven't done a lot because it's not effective, is just blanket messages or blanket LinkedIn introductions or whatever they may be. Those people will only ever come back if there is something in that message which at that particular moment spikes their interest.
And let's remember here, John, you're selling into enterprises.
Yeah.
So anyone out there that's listening is sure, if you're selling a £200, $200 audio mixing amp that I'm looking at now in B2B, because you're selling to another business, sure, mass outreach might work. It's possible. But someone that's going to spend $500,000 on a technology program,
on an idea
that's going to transform their business, you think LinkedIn, I'm going to message cold outreach, it's ludicrous. Because if you and me were the budget holders on the buy side, we'd be like, I got a message from this person. I don't know who they are. They say they do all this amazing stuff. I thought I'd invite them in. You'd be like, are you mad, Mike?
Nah. No.
Are you crazy?
It's just not going to happen.
It's not going to happen.
No. That can be effective on scale. So as you said previously, there are some industries where that is an incredibly effective way of doing things. Certainly in the space that we're in, where you can leverage trusted relationships is the number one way to go, really. And I have made a conscious. I go back to the boss, because I was at that business for 17 years, and he was always encouraging me to build up a network of people, to build up a trusted circle of
It's taken me years, John.
Individuals.
It's taken me years to do that.
Yeah. And I was a bit reticent to do that, because I felt, what am I offering these people? What's the point in having this conversation? I felt very nervous about just speaking to somebody for the sake of speaking to them. I was just like, do they really want to talk to me? And it was only after I left that business that I understood why that was. As a result of that, I've tried to re-engage a lot of my old network, because the people that I dealt with 10 years ago are now in positions of seniority and have an influence on buying and certainly, or they have a navigation into other areas. So that's been incredibly effective.
Just on that point, John, simple things like, because someone listening would be going, well, if they're 20 years behind you and me, well, how do I start making those relationships and trusted relationships? Simple things, the simplest of things work often, which is, for example, I'm a bit of a magpie for market research reports. So I find interesting reports about marketing agencies and brand growth. Well, I find a report and I'll summarize it, because it's an open report. I'll summarize it using an AI tool, and then I'll send the summary to my kind of contact that I'm building a relationship with, just saying, I thought this might be interesting and helpful. I've given you a summary because the report's 30 pages long. Hope that helps. Something as simple as that to a busy person's day
is invaluable. Yeah. And it goes back to what you mentioned earlier about giving things and not expecting anything in return. It harkens back to, and I've got a real life example yesterday of I was helping out an AI startup come to Latin America, because they've got an incredible AI product that recognizes your speech for authentication purposes, and they're looking to come to Latin America. So I've made some introductions to some people that I know there, and the person who's been helping us facilitate that, I saw that she had some connections into a company we would really be able to offer value for. So I asked the question, and I said, if you could make this introduction,
that'd be great.
That would be great. And she was more than happy to do so, because of the effort that I'd done previously for her and her colleagues.
Simple reciprocity.
Yeah.
Without asking, they think, oh, well, John's been really helpful. Of course I'll help.
Yeah.
What can I do?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You'd be surprised how many people out there are willing to help for free. Yes. And I've been involved in some groups now, which I was always a bit apathy before about what do they do in there? Does it actually do anything? But there's some ones been invited to recently, which are incredibly valuable. For sharing information, for getting insights, for comparing notes, for getting some little bit nuggets of information. And then just people in there being very humble and being like, do you know what? I need some help on this. Has anyone been through this before? And the amount of responses that you get, and then you can spin that off into little groups, is incredibly useful.
I probably get 2 or 3 requests a week from people who I've got to know, who are just saying, I've got this problem with the procurement person on the client side. This is happening. What do you think?
Yeah.
And I just go, yeah, fine. Think about it, half an hour, give them a response. Hope that was helpful.
Yeah.
But that generation of goodwill, that they know lots of people who might have problems that I can help solve.
Yeah.
And they might say nice things about me to their friends.
Yeah, absolutely. I think also you mentioned previously about someone 20 years ago. What can they do? It can be quite daunting. I think when you're first coming into this kind of world of how can I make a difference? What can I do? Because you look at. I think if I take myself back to then, I was just like, wow, what do I really know? I think I was a bit nervous about, does someone really, are they really going to believe what I'm saying? Yeah. And as I've certainly got older, you become a lot more resilient to the fact that if someone is not interested, that's okay.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Go on, move on to the next person. You'll hone hone your pitch and you'll hone your knowledge. And something that my brother did actually, which always astounded me, was that even when he was young, going through university and then starting out in his first job, he wasn't the one that was reading City AM on the tube. He was reading The Economist and reading, things of value, so that when he was having engaging conversations with his seniors, he could add something to those things, or he could certainly understand what was going on. That would be one of my biggest tips for someone who was 20 years ago. Immerse yourself in information that has relevance to the sector with which you're in. It's easy to get into your phone playing Candy Crush or, whatever, scrolling Instagram, whatever it may be. It's easy to do that. But if you spend those 5-10 minutes, reading some relevant information about your industry, you'd be surprised how that goes into your level of consciousness, and you can recall things at a moment's notice. And people are like, "Oh, right, where did you hear that?" "Oh, I read it in The Economist." And if you say that, as a 20-year-old or 22-year-old just went to university, you're like, "Oh,
exactly.
Really? Wow, okay, fair enough."
Yeah,
you can pay the subscription fee.
Exactly, and that's how you form point of view, by bringing together lots of disparate information and then having a point of view. John, we're at 30 minutes, so I think we need to wrap up.
Okay.
So it's been fantastic having you as a guest. Thank you ever so much for joining me. If you were giving just one or two tips to people out there who are listening about basically business development, especially entering into new geographic territories, what's your kind of big takeaway about how would you approach that for kind of bigger deal sizes?
Yeah. My biggest tip would be, don't be scared. Have that knowledge of the background and use that as almost like a power play. So I know what I'm talking about. I have confidence to do this, and practice. Practice people around you. People hate doing role plays and what have you. Practice. The more you practice, the better you're going to get. There's a 10,000 hour book and all that kind of jazz that goes on there. Practice and practice. And it's okay for people to say no. People aren't, regardless of how amazing your pitch might be or how amazing your business is or how amazing your product is, some people just won't want it. And that's okay. And just keep moving forward and don't let it get you dragged down, because that's certainly happened to me in the past. And you can really be all encompassing, and then it ruins the next time you make that call. Whereas you go forward, have something to offer, some of the value that's going to make their life that bit easier and that bit better. And you recommended someone to me, and I'm going to misquote them completely, about the sell is about what you leave them. What is it?
Right.
What is it?
The afters.
The afters.
It's the afters.
The afters.
I think Andy Bounds is his name.
Yeah.
It's the afters. It's all about the afters.
And when you said that to me, I obviously followed him and looked it up, and that's really resonated with me. I really like that, and I try and take that forward. So, yeah.
And for people listening, look up. Andy was on one of my episodes earlier on, and it's about the afters.
Yeah.
Go and find out what the afters means in selling. It's brilliant.
It's really, really powerful.
John, it's been amazing.
Yeah,
thanks so much for joining me. Where can people find out more about you?
Yeah, LinkedIn, John Birtwhistle. Yeah, please feel free to reach out. I'm happy to talk to anybody, have any conversations. I'm always willing to share any knowledge that I have. My background is kind of COO, operational efficiencies and automation, and now I'm moving back into kind of executing our go-to-market strategy. So I've got a lot of varied knowledge and a lot of scars from things that haven't worked out. So
brilliant. John, thanks ever so much.
No worries. My pleasure. Lovely to speak. Cheers, Mike.
Thanks for listening to Higgle, the B2B Sales Club podcast series with your host, Mike Lander. Please subscribe so that you'll catch all the next episodes.